Assalamualaikum. I'm Ahmed O'Keefe, host of the NYCMC Business Incubator's virtual business program. Of course, you know the NYCMC. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization and home to one of the fastest growing Muslim communities in New York City, serving over 1,200 members every week. It has multiple branches, including the Jesus Son of Mary Mosque, also known as the Isa ibn Maryam Masjid, the Wellspring School, a full time school for children, the FCAD Institute, a school teaching Arabic and Islamic studies for adults, the NYCMC Foster Care program, the NYCMC Angels provided COVID relief, the Hatebusters, the Hatebusters, a national anti-islamophobia campaign, and of course, the NYCMC Business Incubator. Now, the goal of the incubator is to help provide the tools and networking needed to help new and amplify current entrepreneurs. This virtual business program is designed to help us sharpen our skills and business knowledge. It is a 10-week program. Tonight is session 7. We're going to have our speaker tonight speak for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A for the last 20. We are on YouTube as well as on Zoom. You should have links from email allowing you to enter the Zoom session with us. We'll admit people in a moment. And you can also ask questions during the Q&A on Zoom, or you can post your questions into chat on YouTube, and we'll try to answer them from there. Tonight, we are blessed to have Sister Jenneh Williams, designer, entrepreneur, and founder of Mujalbaba, a Muslim women's clothing company she has run for over 35 years. After 7 years working in the operations and audit department of the Central Bank of Liberia, Jenneh Williams returned to her hometown of Queens, New York, where she became a homemaker and one of a small number of Muslim businesswomen. As a pioneer in the fashion industry, Muslim women's fashion industry, she supplied school uniforms for Islamic schools in the tri-state area. In the 1990s, she seized on the opportunity presented to grow her business in person and online with the growing popularity of Muslim conferences. She currently resides in central New York and enjoys the company of family and learning about gardening. She's going to present to us tonight on the topic, Know Your Numbers, Increasing Revenue, Decreasing Costs, and Achieving Profit. Sister Jenneh.
Assalamu alaikum. Let's get started. Okay, before we get started on going through this, let me just give you an idea of how I got into business. I was not in particularly thinking about starting a business. I was a homemaker at that time, and we could call a housewife. And what would happen is one day I decided to go shopping, buy my daughter, who was about 1 year old, some dresses. And as I was waiting online to purchase those dresses, I realized that why am I buying dresses when I know how to sew? So I quickly put the dresses back on the rack. I went to the fabric store, purchased whatever I needed to make clothing, and then I began to make clothing for my daughter. At that time, there were really no stores around for clothing, Muslim clothing for women, not even so much for girls. So as I began to make different outfits, of course, my daughters, they wore them to school. By that time, I had another daughter. And people began to come to me and ask me, where are you finding these clothes? Where are you buying these things? And I said, well, I'm not buying it, I'm making them. So it was a short time after that, sisters say, well, can you make these for my daughter? No problem. They started to bring me shopping bags of fabric, and one thing led to another, and that's how I got into business. So it wasn't that I really wanted to be in business or was thinking about a business. It was just an opportunity that I decided to monetize. So that's how I got into business. So let's talk about some basic things about business. So we're going to talk about the overall business objective. Now, this is an objective for all businesses, whether you're an ice cream parlor, an auto mechanic shop, a dry cleaners, a Fortune 500 company, a boutique in Soho, whatever you can think of, this is the overall objective of every business, big, small, mom and pop, corporation, etc. You always want to have continuous revenue growth. By revenue, we mean sales income, they call it gross income, revenue, sales. You want to also decrease your cost and decrease your expenses And between those two things, you should be able to maximize your profit. So let's just get a difference between costs and expenses. I think sometimes people get those two things mixed up. So in the terms of cost, let's say you have a t-shirt business and you're buying t-shirts wholesale. Maybe you're paying like $5 for a nice cotton white t-shirt, no problem. Then you say, well, maybe I can save on the cost of the t-shirt. The thing is, when you're in business, you're always thinking about your business. You're always thinking, how can I increase my sales? How can I decrease my costs and expenses? Of course, the objective to make more profit. So let's say you have this $5 t-shirt, it's working well for you and everything. And then you think to yourself, well, maybe I can get that t-shirt for $4.50. That would save me, that would increase my profit if everything remains the same. Fine. That's cost. In terms of expenses, well, we all have expenses. You need expenses to run your business. You're going to have to pay your employees. You have to pay your rent. You have to pay utilities. You have to pay your cable bills, et cetera, et cetera. The only trick with the cost where you as a business person have to be careful that you don't start dipping into a situation where you're sacrificing the quality, the guy with the t-shirts, for example, you're sacrificing the quality of the t-shirt to make more money. Maybe you think customers won't recognize, but they will. So these, to me, are the three most important things all businesses are concerned with. And if you think about it, a lot of the new apps and the software that's coming out are really concentrated on basically these three things, especially increasing revenue growth. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So here we're describing exactly what is revenue. Again, we said revenue is sales or your gross income, or some people call it gross sales. There are different ways that they word it, but basically what it is it's the selling of the goods and services derived or brings you revenue. Okay, so of course, when we're talking about increasing revenue, you have to increase customers. That's one way that you increase your revenue. If you get more customers buying, definitely you're going to increase revenue. And now with all the new apps, they have something now called customer acquisition cost, where you do some advertising, you see how many new customers you can get, and there's a formula that you use, and you can tell you how much it costs you to acquire a new customer. Of course, you have customers, now you say, okay, if I'm averaging like $100 an order, maybe I can bump that up to $125. So the process, you want to increase the transaction size. Now there's software, what they call CRM, Customer Relationship Management, where you connect with your customers, you find out what they like, what they don't like, and you manage all of that with the objective of, again, increasing your revenue. All right. And also you want to increase order frequency. You know, everybody gets those promotional emails about sales, about this going on, coupons. And this is all in the attempt to increase transaction size, increase frequency of customers ordering your products. Now, of course, in terms of revenue, when you start a business, the revenue just doesn't come to you. You might have set everything up perfectly, but now you have to market your product. You have to get your things out there. You have to place ads. You have to offer coupons. If you have a website, you have to have what do they call if you sign up, get a discount. I have spin the wheel, you get a discount. So it's a constant thing of marketing, trying to bring customers in and increase your revenue. The other thing is a company can always raise prices, but really you don't want to really raise prices and disconnect from your market. So instead of raising prices, and I'm sure you've seen this in the supermarket, what some companies do, instead of raising prices, they'll decrease the quantity of a product. So let's say you go into the supermarket, you buy your favorite frozen pizza, and you pull it off the shelf and you look at it, you know something is wrong. You don't quite know what happened. But if you look at the ounces, you realize that that pizza has decreased from 10 ounces to 7 ounces. What happened? So the company didn't raise the price initially. What they did was they saved on what they had to put in the pizza. So they're using less cheese, less dough, less sauce, and also now the box is smaller. So they've increased their revenue by decreasing the quantity of the product. And this is if you shop, this happens across the board with all different products. Usually what I've found too is that even when they decrease the quantity of the product, a few months later, they also raise the price. That happens. Let's go on. Now we think about what decreases revenue. So let's say there's a manufacturing problem or a problem with the delivery that can decrease revenue. I remember some time ago, I'm always looking for new fabrics. If everyone knows that I was selling a lot of jilbabs, a lot of hijabs, what they call abayas, some people call kimars. So what happens is I'm always on the lookout for new fabric because, sisters, we wear a lot of clothes. We want to be comfortable. We want convenience. So I'm always looking for new fabrics to make new products. So what happened at one point, I had gotten a fabric called Koshibo, Japanese fabric, very comfortable in the summer. People, you just wash and wear it with no ironing, no wrinkles, great. What happened was I started using it so much that pretty much the suppliers, they ran out of it. So now I'm trying to get this fabric, but just that temporary pause when the fabric doesn't exist, I'm losing revenue because I'm not able to produce that garment. Another situation happened when the fighting broke out in Syria. Those little girl hijabs that they use in all the Islamic schools, the plain little white slip-on hijab, had a little lace, some not. That was being made in Syria. And what happened was when the fighting broke out in Syria, through the turmoil and everything, that started to become scarce. So it was a challenge to find people who already had maybe a stock, but still it was scarce. People were calling me and asking me for it, and I couldn't deliver until that situation was remedied. So those are what decrease your revenue. All right. What happens at some time? Consumer demand decreases due to changes in taste. People change. People find new things that they like. At the time that I was, let's say, making a lot of overgarments, let's say in the 90s, in the 2000s, and then people's taste started to change. Some sisters decided they wanted to wear skirts or jeans or whatever. So consumer demand changes, that is going to decrease your revenue. Then you have to look at other ways where you can make money in other places. Hard times, people spend less. I'm sure we all are seeing that now with the advent of the COVID-19. People are in their house. People don't want to come out. People are afraid. People don't know what's going to happen. People are spending much more products because their children are home. So hard times are coming. I think we're all feeling that. Even my fabric suppliers are telling me something they can't get or it's hard to get. People are raising prices. That also happens. These are all things that will decrease your revenue. Also, competitors. Every day, there are more and more people coming online, opening up shops, opening up stores, increasing the competition. I know in the case of Victoria's Secret, I read that one thing that was happening with Victoria's Secret was they cited them for their designs being out of date. They said their offices were not diverse, and they started to lose market share. Basically, when you lose market share, that means somebody else is making these sales that you are not making. That's what happened. Also, recently, if we're talking about COVID, I was just reading where Wayfair, for the first time, recorded a profit because of COVID-19. Wayfair is the online store that sells furniture and house furnishings. So now everyone's home, got to get comfortable, increase lighting or whatever you have to do. So Wayfair, for the first time, recorded a profit. And that's another thing. People think sometimes I'm making money, it's great, I'm making money, but they're not looking at the bottom line. Are you making profit? I follow a retail blog, and for years, JCPenney, Sears, and Gap have all been in financial trouble. They were still operating, but they have been in financial trouble. Just last week, they announced that JCPenney is doing a reorganization and they're coming out of bankruptcy under new management. So this happens. Businesses make money, they lose money. It happens all the time. A lot of times CEOs, I think they said 30% of the CEOs, I read in a publication, 30% of the CEOs they said they let them go, but basically they get fired for poor performance. What that usually means is that large corporations, they have projections, they have yearly projections, they have 5-year projections, and they want their sales to meet up with those projections. If over a period of time, if those CEOs are not doing the job of meeting those projections, that's a problem. They're gonna go. All right, so let's keep on. So what's the importance of driving revenue higher? I think that's kind of obvious if you're in business. Higher revenue usually results in increased profits if you're keeping your costs and expenses down, of course. Higher revenue gives you the ability to hire experts. Let's say, for example, now you're making money, you have higher profits. You might want to hire an accountant. You might want to hire a sales team. Whatever that experts that you need to run your business, that's what you do. Now you can invest in new products. You can also add additional products. So if you have a line of clothing, maybe you can add some other new items to your line of clothing. Maybe you can add some way to have those clothing being stored. Okay, I was selling so many scarves over and over and over again. So I said, okay, things are getting a little better. I started to invest in what we call hijab hangers. I found a place where I can get them. I said, okay, so now we have the hijab. Where are the sisters putting all of those hijabs? I said, okay, let's get some hijab hangers. It'll help you organize your closet, organize your weekly, whatever you're wearing for the week. So that are some of the things that you can do when you have increased profit. And of course, the increased profit helps you to expand and grow. So if you're just online, maybe you'll open a brick and mortar store. Maybe you open another store in another city. That's usually what happens. Look at the big companies. They all have stores in various cities, and that's all shows that they're growing, or maybe not. All right. And of course, if decrease in revenue decreases your profit and it decreases your growth. So if you don't have the money to spend to increase your visibility, okay, that's a problem. If that is not rectified, chances are then you might go bust. You might go out of business. So let's look at some of the particular phrases that go along with businesses that people should be aware of if you're a business, no matter where you are in that business. So when they talk about COGS, everything is initials now, I noticed. Cost of goods sold. Very simple. Let's say it's your opening inventory plus what the merchandise you purchase plus your closing inventory equal your COGS. So let's say you're starting out a brand new business. You have no inventory. You purchased $50 worth of inventory. Now you have $50 worth of goods that are available for sale. $50 worth of goods that you can offer the public for sale. So at the end of whatever period that is, maybe it's your, a quarterly cycle, you have closing inventory, $40, or might be from January to December. So you have closing inventory of $40, and these are just small numbers, make it easy. So your cost of goods sold is $10. Keep that in mind. The cost of goods sold is $10. That is what you call COGS. Now, when we talk about gross margin and gross profit, so the gross margin or the gross profit profit is your sales income minus your cost of goods sold. So in this case, okay, we have sales income of $200. You subtract from the previous slide the $10 cost of goods sold, and this gives you your gross margin, or what we call gross profit. From there, okay, now if you have your gross profit, the next thing you have to look at are your expenses, because you have expenses running your business. You have salary, you have rent, you have to pay your insurance, you have utility bills, you might have legal fees or consultation fees. Those are usually what they call general and administrative expenses, the operating expenses of your business. So now we want to get to the bottom line. That's the most important thing, of course. So the gross margin, or the gross profit, less your operating expenses. So from the previous slide, we had gross profit of $190, and we had operating expenses of $10, and we have a net profit or net income of $180. Now this net profit, if you're talking about unit economics talks about your net profit per item or per product, not the total. It's per item or per profit is what we refer to as in unit economics. All right. Now I can't read all of the end. So this is just talking about information that is online. I got this from Investopia, and it income statement. I can't read all the way to the end. I don't know how to get it up there. All right. So the income statement is one of the three important financial statements besides your balance sheet and your cash flow statement. So basically your income statement shows all your income less all your expenses, and that at the bottom line, that should be your net profit. So you'll see this, or it's also called a profit and loss statement. If you are a single LLC, or if you are a sole proprietorship, this is actually your 1040C on your tax return, is usually your income statement, just to let you know. All right, so again, it shows you your profit and loss for a particular period of time. With some businesses, they have to do that quarterly. If you're a publicly traded corporation, you have to do those quarterly returns. And of course, depending on what type of business structure you have, if you are a publicly traded company, which means you have shares that you use to invest to grow capital, then you definitely have to do those statements. You have more government regulation. You have to abide by the generally accepted accounting principles, etc. But basically, that's what the income shows. All your income and expenses for a particular period of time. Your balance sheet is the financial statement that shows your assets and liabilities and the shareholders' equity. Again, if you're a public traded company, you have shareholders' equity. If you're just a sole proprietor, we usually call that capital. So what it basically is your balance sheet shows all the things that you own: your cash, your accounts receivable, your inventory, your truck, if you have a building, and all your liabilities are all the things that you owe. You might have a loan, so it shows your loan payable. You might have outstanding accounts that you haven't paid for. You've gotten goods you haven't paid for, so you owe somebody this accounts payable. And the equity shows the amount invested in the company. All right. I'm almost at the end. All right, the cash flow statement. Basically, the cash flow statement shows you all the entries going in and all the entries coming out. even these days, if you have a business account, I know with Bank of America, they have something they call a cash flow. They show you the money coming in, where it was spent. As we go along, the banks and what you use to do your transaction, they all are up in their game to say and offering more services to help people manage their business. I know when Square first came out, for example, it was just that little device that you would put on your phone to do entries. Now they have a point of sale system. Now Square is doing websites. So it's like that. So the cash flow is basically what goes in your business and what comes out. And of course, there are a lot of what do you call those? I forget the name, but there's a lot of different formulas that they use to determine how businesses are doing and how they're not doing, what will make them more successful. And then they have different projections that they projection. You always have to have projections of what you want to do in the next 6 months, what you want to do in the next year, etc. In my case,
pro forma statements, things like that.
Huh?
I think they're sometimes called pro forma statements. And
well, a pro forma statement that's to do with when you have not pro forma invoices, for example, is like the invoices between you and another company. I don't know if they pro forma statements. I've never heard them refer to a cash statement as a pro forma statement.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, that's what the cash flow. Now, years and years ago, when I studied accounting, we basically concentrated on the income statement and the balance sheet. We didn't really concentrate on cash flow. So there's a lot of new things that they look at now with all the tech and the data that can be collected. So there's a lot more formulas and things that they look at and to tell the business how you're doing, what you shouldn't be doing. There's so many apps now and so much software now. It's really, everyone has apps, everyone has software to tell you how the business is going. So basically, that's it. Finish kind of early. Is there any question?
Yeah, so we'll definitely open it up to questions. If anyone is watching on YouTube wants to ask a question, or if the few people here in Zoom want to ask a question, they can. I think there's a raise your hand button, like a reaction here. I'll give an example for everyone. And if you put that up, then I'll ask you to unmute. You can ask your question. Otherwise, you can also write it in. Let me ask you while we're looking and waiting for questions. Do you mentioned various apps and things like that. What experience do you have in using them in your own business? What has been your experience working with these companies?
Well, the thing is, what is interesting is that when I started a lot of this, or let's say when I started this, a lot of these apps didn't exist. Even the platform that I'm using right now, my e-commerce platform, I came online in 1999. I don't think my e-commerce company came along until early 2000. And even if you look at a lot of the, like the customer acquisition course, how they figure all that, that's really new tech. Like 10, 15 years ago, I don't even know if that stuff existed. So of course, there's always been around is what is that? QuickBooks.
Sure.
And QuickBooks, and they have very good videos on YouTube to let you know how to use QuickBooks. Very interesting. The only thing, and they have QuickBooks. I think there's FreshBooks. There's one called Zero. There's Wave. There's so many different software. I have something called Spin the Wheel. I signed up with some company. You keep adding different perks and things to get customers interested. So I don't remember the company is called Privy. I signed up. I used that app. What happens? It collects emails, and once you put in your email, it offers you a discount. I have something called Tidio, which is.
So let me ask you, rather than going through a list. How do you evaluate them as they reach out to you the first time, or do you test them out at their trials? What is your experience working with them?
Well, my
You as a
my first
business
thing is,
person,
yeah.
35 years, you have to have benefit. We need the benefit from your experience here and having your judgment and how you're moving forward with this.
Well, the thing is, you have to look at, well, what do you want to do,
Yeah.
and you have to evaluate what are you good at, what you're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, okay, I understand the QuickBooks. That's not really a big deal for me. I understand, what it does. Is entries, is this, is that. Okay, that's not a big deal. But the things like the CRM, this is something new to me. So I spend a lot of time now that I have the time, and I'm trying to know, well, the CRM, this is something new, the customer relations management. So I'm looking that over to see how I can benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've used, well, what I try to have in place now, I have something where, well, if I'm not on the computer, at least if somebody comes on, you have those automated apps that'll ask you, oh, hello, how are you? Can I help you with anything? You have those automated
Right.
things.
Yeah.
And they'll ask you, would you like a discount? And you say, sure, well, why not? And it'll collect your email, and at the back end, I see who came on. If I'm there, then I'll try to interact with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, then I have the privy. So you keep using things as long as there's some interest. If there's no interest, then you look for something else. And you also look, I have an e-commerce platform, BigCommerce. I use BigCommerce. So I will go through the apps and I'll see what the feedback is from other business people who are using those apps. They'll tell you it was good for this, but I didn't like it for that.
Mm-hmm.
Or this helped me a lot, or that didn't help me a lot. So that is how I determine, because of course, like I say, you want to reach customers, you want to do it the most efficient way. And sometimes I just Google, what is the best app for this?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll tell me, and I'll go and I'll look at it and apply. I have to admit, I haven't used a ton of apps. I haven't. Now it might become necessary because I did a lot of shows. I traveled a lot. Sometimes every week I was on the road going to another city, at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, maybe up to 4 times a month. I was traveling to other cities, and that's mostly during the good weather. In the winter, no. So I didn't implement a lot of apps. I did a lot of face-to-face meeting of customers. When I went to ISNA, Six Flags, there's a sister conference in Maryland. That is where I met most of my customers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got to know most of my customers. Physically going to places, meeting people. They might have been people who purchased online, and now we meet, and we're all happy because now we see each other, we know who's who. And those type of relationships to me are better than the apps. But I'm just, at this point, and I stopped traveling in 2015 when I moved. But over those years, that is how I met most of my customers and got the majority of my customers.
And your client engagement now is, you're finding it's more through apps. You're not having, obviously you don't have the conferences to engage your clients. Are there other ways you've been trying to engage them?
Well, I'm thinking of doing some other things too. Maybe doing some, maybe a podcast, maybe a YouTube, something. I'm thinking of that. Of course, there's Instagram. I have customers on Instagram. I have customers on Facebook, and you interact with them that way also. The apps, I can't say for sure if this particular app will definitely generate whatever. That is something you have to try out. So if you want to go to a platform, let's say like a YouTube, then you have to invest some money, and from that you'll see how many people respond, how many new customers, because now we have all these data collecting things. So you put out $500 on YouTube. and then you collected data to see how many customers you got through that YouTube ad.
Sure.
So that is what I think most people are doing now, or really going to have to do, because you don't have the exchange that we used to have. Like you said, there's no programs.
Mm.
That's really a difference in the game. People really have to operate differently. For example, I have at least 4 different fabric suppliers that I deal with. They're not on the internet at all.
Right.
And I'm always telling them, you have to get on the internet. But they're not really in a position or prepared to do that. So whoever comes and gets online and gets all of these things in order, those are going to be the people who are going to win out. Because now there's that interaction that you had before that doesn't exist anymore. So
do you see it as a different market, the online market, from the in-person market, or is it related? How are they connected for you, or how do you advise other business owners to view the relationship between the online market and an in-person customer?
Well, I think over the years, I have gathered some customers, but there are some people, who they're doing, they have bigger operations online than I do. In 2015, when I stopped traveling, I also started selling garments. I'm just doing scarves now. So that has an impact on my business also. Mm-hmm. And there are many more competitors online. Just look at Alibaba. Alibaba it's a great big market for anybody who wants to sell anything.
Yeah.
You just get stuff from
literally
Alibaba.
Anything.
When I first joined Alibaba,
buy a factory on Alibaba.
Huh?
You could buy a factory in Alibaba if you want.
Exactly. The funny thing is, when Alibaba first came on the internet, I signed up to be a seller. And I was getting, people were contacting me, et cetera, et cetera. And for a while I got busy. I forgot about Alibaba. Now people are sending me, even after all of these years, some of those things I don't even sell anymore, but people are contacting me. But the trick is I cannot respond. Alibaba has made it in such a way that you have to be a gold member before you can respond to people. I said, okay, no problem. So everything has changed, and everything, have shifted online. So I don't know. I think sometimes, what are the people what are they going to do who were dependent on making those sales, making those connections, and in a face-to-face, person-to-person way? It's different now.
I had a question come to me. They were asking, how many branches do you have, and how do you manage?
No, I didn't have any branches. I packed up. I went myself everywhere. People were even asking me, where do I live? People weren't sure where I live, because I'm in Maryland. Next week I'm in New Jersey. Next week
how are you in all these places?
Huh?
How do I see you everywhere?
Yeah, that's pretty much. People thought I lived in New Jersey or Maryland or something. So I never went that extent. Now, one of the interesting things, when the brother gave the talk, the very first talk, he said, you have to determine what you want to do. I was never in the mode of, I want to be in Macy's or this, in my particular case, I had a lot of children. My concern was, yes, I want to make money, but I want to make sure my kids are okay. I can't be out there but so much and do but so much. Even sometimes I would take them with me. But the thing is that was, let's say, my concern. I wasn't really at that point looking at how many branches I can have or how many places I can be. That wasn't really my objective. So that's different. Certainly now, I don't know how many branches can you really look now. Look at all the big stores. A lot of the big stores are closing branches.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of up in the air, like what's going to happen with business, what's going to happen with people.
Now, I heard you say before that you had physical location before, right? Mm-hmm. Do you presently have a physical store?
We had a store not too far from NYCMC on Hillside Avenue and 185th Street.
Okay.
We were there for about 3 years.
And what was this is important to me because it goes to cost and how you're running your business. Because to me, what's really interesting is that over 35 years, I know that you've reinvented your business and what you're selling several times. So this is why I'm bringing this up. So the impact of having the store, how did that benefit you in terms of your revenue? How did it impact you in terms of your costs? And what was your overall take on that? And what sort of guidance can you maybe share with others who are considering getting physical retail space?
Well, the best thing, if anyone is considering physical retail space, what I say, any business, it's good if you have partners, people who share with you your same idea and they're there to help you. It's very hard to do a lot of things on your own. Very, very difficult. And I eventually gave it up because it wasn't making what I think it should be making. And like I said, this happened right around the time they had the, I guess, what do you call it? The housing bubble in 2008. I wasn't even conscious of that to really say, okay, this might not be a good idea at this time. We went forward with it. We had to revamp the whole store. Like I say, it stayed open for 3 years. The good thing about the store was visibility.
Sure.
Now, even though there are a lot of stores on, let's say, if you know Hillside Avenue, there's a lot of stores on Hillside Avenue, but a lot of them are kind of ethnically situated. They're great for somebody who dresses like that or people from that country. It wasn't a store that was like, okay, with whatever Muslims use, this is what it's here, no matter where you're from or who you are, something like that. Now, what was interesting when we opened that store was, even though there were many stores in Brooklyn, if you Googled Islamic clothing store New York, we would come up. So that let me know that those stores in Brooklyn, they're there, but they're not online.
Yeah.
So that was a great advantage of you would just type in Islamic clothing store, Muslim clothing store, and our shop would come up. So that was great advertising. What it also did was, and who knows, you never know who's looking for what. Because we had some very interesting things. One time I got an order from Universal Studios.
Really?
Right. And what did they want? They wanted cooks. And this was for, I think, that Robert Redford movie, Lambs for Lions or Lions for Lambs or something like that.
I don't remember.
Yeah. It's called Lambs for Lions, something like that. One of the Robert Redford movies, they ordered cooks from us. I used to sell a long cotton slip. I got an order for a convent of nuns somewhere in the Midwest. A theater production in Canada sent for some things. And this is all because all someone had to do was Google and it would come up. You could just go to the website and see what is there. Also, we provided some products or some props for Law and Order. They showed up at the store one day and bought some plaques and different things for an episode they were doing about, I think, some African Muslims. So Law and Order, I don't know which branch of that, but Law and Order came and they purchased some things. One day, about 9 o'clock in the morning, we came to open up the store and there was a limo outside. We didn't think twice about that. And as we began to open, the chauffeur opened the door. A very well-carved lady came out with her assistant, and she told us that she had to go to Saudi for a contract. She had a pharmaceutical company in Manhattan. She had to go to Saudi for a contract. She wanted black abaya. She wanted black scarf. She wanted the whole works. Fine. So, I'm helping her get all these things together. And I'm just curious, how did she know about us? So I asked her, well, who told you to come? How did you find out? She said that Nordstrom's
referred her to
not Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus.
Neiman Marcus.
She said she was referred by Neiman Marcus, and I was like, I don't even know where Neiman Marcus is. But she said, Neiman Marcus told me to come here. And I was like, really? So just the fact that you're online and people have the opportunity to see, that was a big boost for us.
Yeah.
Because, some other person who was a photographer came from Brooklyn and she wanted this and that. And I don't even know how they even knew about it, but I think just the fact that you had an online presence, that made a big difference. One day I got an order from it was some Swedish staffing agency located. I don't know where they were located. And they ordered a bunch of stuff. And then when I asked where they wanted delivered, it was 5 Army bases. Now I was a little concerned. What are they going to do with that stuff? But what can you do? One of my friend's son who was in the Army, he told me they're going to probably use it for training. And you get a little scared. What are they doing with those things? I had another case where, again, another agency ordered stuff to deliver. I don't know if it was Utah. I don't remember. But, I looked these things up because I want to know what are they going to do with it. And actually, that was a missile testing site. So that's a little scary.
Yeah, what were they doing? That's an interesting one.
Well, they order Islamic clothing, and then I'm like, okay, you're a missile testing site. What does that mean? Yeah. So those things make you a little unsettled, but
that's a little strange. Yeah.
Yeah. You
at least they bought something.
Huh?
They bought something. That's good.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's some synergy for you with the physical space and the online presence. But I guess the online for you ultimately wasn't what you were looking for. I'm curious what other pivots you might have gone through and how did you realize I need to make this change? Looking at your numbers, everybody's business goes through ups and downs. Curious, what were the signals to you that something is off, something needs to change? How did you look at that in your time running the business?
Well, what okay, I'm doing all the business hands-on. I don't have a team to report to me. And you'll notice the highs and the lows. For example, of course, around the time of Eid, before Eid, of course, sales going to spike. Yeah. When school starts around August, sales go down. That's understandable. People are spending money on uniforms, school supplies, things like that. When the winter comes, again, sales down. Why? Everybody's in the house. You got coats on. You don't need that much clothing. It's cold. You're not even coming out if you don't have to. Then when it's springtime, again, the sales start to spike. And most of the programs that I would travel to, they would start in March. So I would have a fashion show in March in Washington. I would have the largest Muslim Sisters program in Maryland in April. It's every April. And then, of course, ISNA, you go through the whole, and then by the time December comes, those programs are now in warmer areas. They might have it in LA, Texas, etc. Yep. But when you're running the business yourself, you'll know when things are spiking, when things are going. It becomes very visible. You can see from your sale. You can see from your calls what's going on. And in the process of all of this, you're constantly thinking about your business. What can I do more? I started to wholesale. So you start finding people who wholesale. I had one customer I think was in the Carolinas. She would send me swatches of all her clothes to match up scarves. Have to be perfectly matched. She wouldn't. So as people know you, people contact you. I like this, but I want it in this size. I like that, but I want it in this color. So you get a lot of feedback. There are a lot of sisters who will contact you who are selling just to help make their own ends meet.
Yeah.
So I used to always feel, I would feel very good. I'll say, alhamdulillah, I at least I'm offering a service. I know a sister who was going through a very hard time. She was a school teacher and she buys scarves for me and go to the masjid. And she said, Jenneh, I'll sell off all the scarves when I go to the masjid, fill up my tank, my gas tank, and buy groceries for me and my son. So those are things that make you feel good. At least you're helping. At the same time, you're helping other sisters to help themselves, support themselves and their families. And I had another customer in Ohio. She just started selling because she wanted to save money for Hajj.
Sure.
So she started saving. She would order, she would sell, she would order and sell, and she would get money to go to Hajj. So it's a lot of good stories. I'm very grateful. I say alhamdulillah all the time. I met a lot of sisters. A lot of us remained friends for years and years. It's a very rewarding and good feeling to be able to do. And now that a lot of people have lost their jobs, what's going to happen?
I was
I
wondering
think,
if you could talk to us about the resilience that you have to have going through this. I know we talked a little bit about your personal story. First of all, being a Muslim businesswoman, and not belonging to some of the communities that exist, that drive business to people of one nationality, will like you mentioned. You
yeah.
mentioned there might be stores for one ethnicity or one national background or another, and they might drive business to there. How did you work through this adversity? What did the business mean to you? And what sort of message can you share with others that might help them if they're either starting a new business, finding themselves in tight situations, people who might be now facing down a problem they've never had to face before? What sort of advice or inspiration can you maybe provide for us?
You have to be determined. You have to be determined. You have to be confident. And it's a struggle. And you say, okay, I want to win this. I want to overcome this. I'm not letting anybody stop me. Pretty much that's it. So whatever issues someone might have, you don't let that bother you. You have a job to do.
Yeah.
When it was just myself, I have a job to do. I'm not letting anyone discourage me or make me feel bad or whatever. Yes, there was a time when I started, I was wearing niqab. So that's the attitude that you have to have. I have to say, alhamdulillah, a lot of the people I met in this business were Muslim men. And that does help a lot, because they see you, they'll make, they'll work with you, they make deals with you. A few of my fabric suppliers, they're Muslim. If you go into Manhattan, for example, and if you're on, let's say, like around 8th Avenue and 39th Street, there's a few Muslim there who are selling fabric, which is great. Yeah. It's great when you walk in a store and someone's playing Quran. So that is help. But you have to, if you're going to be upset when people might not like you or might not like the way you look, and if you let that upset you, you can't. You have a job to do, and you want to do what you need to do. If someone doesn't like that, that's fine. There's, when you let's say, for example, when I would go into Manhattan and I'm looking for fabric, I walk up and down stores. Of course, there's going to be some people who don't want to serve you, who don't like the way you look. Okay, fine. There's 10 other stores, no problem.
It's like a big mistake moment from Pretty Woman. You come back with all your bags. Sorry.
So you have to be determined. I don't think sisters should be afraid to do business. I think we Muslim women, especially with kids and multiple, we have a lot of qualities that help us, to me, with business. If you think of your children, what do you have to be? You have to be a mentor.
Yeah.
You have to be an arbitrator. You have to be a referee. You have to be a project manager.
Yeah.
You have to be organized. There's so many things. You have to be a psychologist, a sociologist. There's so many things. So I don't think women should be afraid to do business. Just the fact that you married, you had kids and all of that, you've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And you can apply a lot of those things that you learn to business.
Some of the hardest working people I've ever hired were mothers. Just they spent like, I can't believe you hired me. I'm like, I know how hard it is to be a mom. I see my wife. I know that if you're here now, you're committed and you're going to give me 110% because you give that and we're at home. We have another question from one of our
Sure.
guests here. They ask, they say, "Assalamu alaikum. I was wondering if it's true that when someone runs their own business, they would be busier than if they had a 9-to-5 job. I also heard the opposite of that, that when you run your own business, you work according to your own hours. So it's more flexible than a 9-to-5 job. So which is true in your experience?"
Maybe when you are making millions of dollars, but on an everyday basis, if you're a regular business, yes. And I've done a 9-to-5. You know, let's face it, if you have a 9-to-5 job and it's not very demanding job, and some days you don't feel well, you can show up and get through the day just fine. But when you have your own business, yes, you are working late hours. You're working longer hours. Who's going to do the work? You're doing everything. So you know, having a 9-to-5, to me, yeah, it's easier. You just show up and do whatever you have to do. You're not, the big thing with your business, you're responsible for your business. When you're working the 9-to-5, that other person is responsible for the business. So you just do your job and you go home. You do not have to worry about, oh, how am I going to make money? How will I pay my employee? You don't have to worry about that. But when you're worrying about when you're running your own business, that's the thing. You have much more responsibility, because if the business doesn't do well, that's on you. If you go to a 9-to-5 and the guy's business is not doing well, that's not your fault.
All right. We have another question here. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
Yeah.
So the other question, so that I'll just read it as they wrote it. "Since you've been in business for a while, have you ever gotten bored with what you do and needed to be remotivated or refreshed? Any advice on what to do if you're in that situation? Not necessarily because it's been a long time, but because life bogs you down and your other jobs distract you and the business just remains stagnant. There's no growth." So advice or your own experience with that.
Yeah, there's going to be times when you would think, well, maybe I should do something else. You know, when you want to do, a lot of people want to go in business, but you have to be very determined and you have to be very passionate about what you're doing. If you're not, the first time something goes wrong, you want to quit. You say, why should I bother stressing myself out? I can go get a job. Yeah. And I was not prepared to get a job, because I knew if I would go and get a job, I'm going to be away from my children all day. So I was not prepared to do that. So I have to constantly think of ways where I can keep everything going all the time. It's at a certain point when you want, it's not an option.
Yeah.
And sometimes things can go wrong, but that's anything can go wrong in life. Also, you can have things go wrong in life. The thing is, if you think about it, you can have problems in your business. You can have problems in your personal life. You can have problems at your job. What do they all require? They all require a solution. So it's just a business. You're just going to have to find another solution. It's not going to be, oh, if I do business, I'm going to have problems. But if I don't do business, I won't have problems. You're going to have other problems. So you just have to say, okay, take a minute, think about it. How do I solve those problems? The same thing with your business. Okay, think for a minute. Okay, sales are down. What can I do to increase sales for this period of time? You say, okay, wait a minute. I have that customer in Georgia. I haven't heard from her in a while. Let me call her up.
Yeah.
That customer in Baltimore. Let me call her up. Let me make some deals. Let me think. How about we do some consignment sales? I leave some merchandise with you to sell. You advertise for me. I advertise your business. You keep thinking.
Yeah.
You have to keep thinking. If you really want to do that, you will keep thinking. Go watch some videos, because everything is on YouTube now. Really, you can watch videos, and exactly. People will tell you, okay, when this happens, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that, and you keep going. If you're not going to have the determination and the guts to run a business, It's not going to work out the way you want. Sometimes you think your idea is the best idea in the whole world, but not everybody else does.
Let me ask one other question we had here on YouTube, and we'll make this the last question because we're coming up on 7 o'clock.
Right.
And this is I think, perfect question to wrap up your topic tonight. They specifically asked, what would be your advice for someone who struggles with the numbers side of the business?
Okay. If you struggle with the number side, maybe you need to go take a course.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, you have to, okay, the number side, okay, what is it? Is it the accounting side? Take a course. You can go take a course. What I used to do when I used to think, okay, maybe I'm getting off course, or am I sure I'm on the right course? All right. So what I would do, I would go take a class. I took an H&R Block class. I went to FIT in Manhattan. I took a few courses on starting a business just to make sure I'm moving in the good direction. In terms of, I do my own taxes just to make sure I'm doing my taxes right. I said, okay, I'll go to H&R Block because I'm using their software. I take my tax return. I ask the guy, can you know, look at my taxes, give me an idea. Where am I going wrong? He said, you're fine. So I go to the Small Business Administration, ask them, do I need a business plan? Do I need this? Do I need that? And they'll tell you, no, you know, you might not need that. There's all type of resources. I used to the Queens Economic Development Corporation on Queens Boulevard. They have courses. There's so many places that you go, depending on what you do. There's YouTube, get books, there's online, go take courses, and that helps keep you moving. It's a learning process. It's definitely a learning process. So if it's the financials, go see some of the Economic Development Corporation. They might have classes on QuickBooks. There's video. There's a very good video on YouTube on QuickBooks. So if that's what you mean in terms of the number that you can't figure them out, the other most very important thing is learn terminology. You don't have to learn everything in terms of accounting, but at least understand what the terms mean. Because even if you have an accountant, you say, okay, I don't need to have an accountant. So when an accountant is talking to you, how do you understand what he's saying if you don't understand the terminology?
Yeah.
So that's my advice. Go learn. There's so much stuff available now to learn. You can learn anything now.
All right. Well, thank you, Sister Jenneh. And thank you everyone who came and attended tonight. With that, we're going to wrap up for the evening. I will say next week, we will be also on Friday. Bear with me 1 second. I believe it's at 8 p.m. Sorry, 1 second, everyone. Just confirming the schedule because there have been some changes and I don't want to make a mistake. We are on Friday, the 18th at 8 p.m. with Medina Hasina, who will be discussing Make It Better. And I know she's going to be talking about SEO optimization and search engine optimization and certain other things. So we will have more information on that in email in the coming week. So Friday at 8 p.m. And until then, again, thank you, Sister Jenneh.
Thank you too. I appreciate it for having me. I really enjoyed. Thank you so much.
We're blessed to have you. And with that, we will conclude. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa al-asr wa insana lafi khusrin alladhina amanu wa salihati wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum. Good night.
Wa alaikum. How do I get out of here?